That was certainly a brighter Arsenal, an Arsenal with more ideas, wasn't it? A brighter Arsenal in performance just as much as the vibes a 4-1 win and North London derby can provide. Yes, it was an understaffed Spurs team with some overly bold ideas in Igor Tudor's first game as boss. Thanks, Igor, I think we'll like you here for the time being. And while the result shouldn't allay all our Arsenal concerns, we can hope that with Havertz's third return from injury not too far off and a week to chill before Chelsea, the result can settle us for the run in ahead. We are still top of the Premier League, and we are still, in my opinion, the best team in the Premier League. Thanks again for that, Igor. But seriously, I'm pushed for time, so I'll leave my lingering thoughts and queries for my midweek video about Arsenal, and now turn my attention fully to why a similar Arsenal game plan to the win at home against Spurs earlier in the season, one I called bait to break, ripped up again a different Spurs team this time. Let's talk early warning signs. This is Spurs looking to go near man-to-man in a low block. Risky at best, especially with our rotations. We see what this looked like for them against our right-hand side, and like at the Emirates where it's about attracting the Spurs pivot in their 5-2-3 block across to the ball side before speeding it up back into the middle where our counter movements had opened up space. We see a lot of similarities here. We move it side to side quickly, Spurs look to match up again as Gallagher jumps onto Rice, but there's so much space for him to try and cover. Hincapie can spill into a blind spot, Paulinho has to compensate, leaving Gyokeres 1v1 with Dragusin. In a 1v1, he felt much better equipped to dominate. Hincapie showed off the channel balls that became his USP at Leverkusen, and the shot from Gyokeres whizzes wide. In this high central role, Eze sometimes this season has felt on a bit of an island, but you can see how this image changes a little bit as Spurs are again a step late across the board matching up with our right hand side. We've got Zubimendi close by, Saka looking to probe the line, hinging off Eze, who has shown a really good relationship this season with wingers going the other way, and Timber is looking to punch into the middle with intent. In this example, Eze is more backboardy, the first time whip that he shows off is lovely, and it winds up in Trossard squeezing it just by the post. It's also no surprise that Zubimendi felt snappier with his passing. A man-to-man press means Zubimendi has more scope to pop up in these build-up pockets where he can pull the trigger really quickly. He's never been a quarterback type number 6. Spurs actually show the upside in their press here and turn it over, but we take advantage, I think, of the awkward positions they find themselves in. And when we break, look at what Eze can do when these diagonal passes come to him, when he's a little bit more side on. I love when we set up like this in our deeper build-up because it doesn't just feel like we're pumping long to Gyokeres without much intention, but we can have two dashers on top of Leo and Eze, able to combine in those staggered central combinations that have gone missing since that Liverpool at home game. Rice gets his two-way threat back and Gyokeres is almost slid in. Different personnel, but also similar ideas to the 3-1 win at home against Bayern in November. So, looking at this, it's not really a surprise, is it, that Eze had found joy again against Spurs. Look at this record, by the way. And he found another shooting window at the top of the box in these cutback zones. Saka was immense once more, and once more he was so unfortunate to miss out on an official goal contribution. He was able to show off his really intelligent movement against Spurs too. Again, look at the structure here as Saka latches on to Hincapie's ball. Hincapie doesn't always have the most guile in deep build-up, but there's no doubt that his best qualities come not from pinning high and inside, but starting deeper. But it is true that he had to be lower against a pressier Spurs side than teams we've faced recently in order to keep us more connected. But our left-hand side looks so much more threatening when we can get those double movers off Trossard, forcing that, late again, man-to-man Spurs press to compensate, with Paulinho having to jump, Hincapie sliding Rice in off the shoulder, and almost Eze sweeping up again. So, baiting Spurs wide before finding the space in the middle or on the other side, partnered with those counter movements at the top of the pitch. That was the game plan. It was Eze here who profited off Timber's diagonal pass in November, and it was Gyokeres here with the roles reversed. And this feels a more repeatable dynamic in terms of allowing Gyokeres to hit the ball harder more often, that phrase that I keep coming back to, and these counter movements, not always with him being the one to go in behind, but him sitting in those softer spots just under Eze. And these two, Eze and Gyokeres, from the top of the box are arguably our best shooters from here. Gyokeres has improved his body positioning, I think, for duels, and subsequently his first touch can be less bouncy, but having Saka and Eze, who is really switched on, by the way, off the ball here, which Arteta will love to see, gives Gyokeres a little bit more breathing space, takes the onus off him. Saka's dashing again, and Eze sweeps up in transition, albeit chaotically, but in a way that became kind of Groundhog Day at Crystal Palace. And when also he spills to this left touchline, fronts up his man, waits for a heavy lunge, feints, glides past him. Again, facing a man-to-man press helps massively. I'm not going to shy away from that. But these are the kinds of scenarios where Eze is guaranteed, or as close to guaranteed as you can get, to bang in. And the fact that he was less off-bally in his in-possession role against Spurs was portrayed in his map, allowed to dance a bit more across the lanes and join in either side. This is a massive positive, and it's part of what Arteta has been speaking about in terms of understanding more and more what it takes to get Eberechi Eze to succeed in this team. Now let's talk substitutions, let's talk finishers, and let's start with Christian Mosquera. I can be pretty bullish when I say Mosquera's potential as this right-back finisher for us is so high, because he doesn't have to worry so much about the aerial duel against the bigger-bodied, streetwise centre-forward, but he can sort of harry a winger as high up the pitch as he wants and be in little danger of being spun because of that coverage over the ground and his span once he's touched tight. The running power for overlaps going forward is there too, but I'm not sure yet about the quality of the delivery. We haven't seen that, and at the moment, in his raw form, I doubt that it's there to a high degree. It seems best for Mosquera to sit and to pick his moments to be a decoy with those overlapping runs, but otherwise try and play a kind of dialed up version of what he already does brilliantly in the backline. Punch passes through to Saka like this. Getting his starters and his finishers right, and what feels the best kind of balance for a given game state, or how that affects the balance of our partnerships on the pitch, is not something Arteta, I think, has showered himself in glory with recently. But there can be no doubt that Gyokeres keeps coming good in second halves, as very often the team does. Physical mismatches are, of course, contexts we have to take into account, but it's also a context we have to take into account when someone like Gyokeres, we know, isn't going to hold any sympathy in reserve for Archie Gray here. Part of his qualities as a striker is that he wants and is determined and is relentless in cashing this kind of mismatch in, getting himself into another one of those positions to showcase his finishing quality. And it's important for us to get that snap back in the press too. It's how you get moments like this as well from Eze and Saka combining after Mosquera hassles and pokes a foot in. And when it's all said and done, shots like this just feel better, don't they? For an Arsenal team who aren't going to have this title delivered to them on a silver platter, but are going to have to go and grab it themselves. Spurs was not the definitive hurdle. City have closed the gap. But Spurs was a hurdle we simply had to overcome, and one we had to look better in doing so. And that we did. With 10 games to go, Arsenal go and grab that Premier League.